Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. During yesterday's video, I had some comments that say people always seem to forget about Rebound on Ephemerate. Now, I personally would never do such a thing. However, it did get me thinking what would happen if somebody forgot the rebound of one of their spells. So, that's today's question. Nick casts Blossom and Calm at the end of Amy's turn, then puts it into his graveyard. During his turn, Nick forgets to cast it. What is the appropriate infraction, penalty, and fix? Alright, so the first thing I want to do to answer this question is bring up the text for Rebound from the CR. You've probably seen this sort of stuff from me before during the rules types of questions, however, you might be a little bit curious why I need to do it during the policy ones. It turns out that determining the correct infraction in this case depends a lot on the exact wording of Rebound. In order to identify what the correct infraction is, you have to determine what point a player first broke the rules. In other words, the first time that a player did something that was against the rules. In this case, we can take a look at the definition and see a couple of really interesting things that stand out. First of all, the thing that lets you cast the Rebound spell the second time is a triggered ability, and it's optional. You can tell it's a triggered ability because it uses the word at, and you can tell that it's optional because it uses the word may. Now, the other interesting thing that I want to draw everybody's attention to is the part where you exile it as it resolves. In this case, you can see that this is not a triggered ability because it does not use any of at, when, or whenever, and, crucially, it does not use the word may. That means that this is not optional to do, and it happens as the spell resolves. So that's the answer to what the first thing someone did that was against the rules is. Nick put the card into his graveyard rather than exiling it. Now, there are a couple of alternate scenarios here that I could maybe talk about. For example, if Nick put it into his graveyard, but he did it in a special way, for example, putting it offset a little bit from all the rest of his cards, or putting it in there sideways, I would probably consider that to have been exiled. After all, that is certainly the most logical explanation for me as to why that card would be treated special from all the other ones. However, let's consider for this case only that Nick put it into his graveyard with nothing special about it and no indication that the card would have been exiled. Obviously, if it was put somewhere different from all the other cards in his graveyard, I would probably consider that to be exiled too, but that would be a completely different scenario and a really interesting situation that we might want to talk about on a future DDR so we can give it the attention it deserves. Now, on to the rest of the ruling. Given that Nick put the card into his graveyard and didn't exile it, the first thing that he did that was against the rules was not follow the instruction in Rebound to exile the card. Because Nick did not follow a game instruction correctly, the infraction here is a game rule violation, and the penalty for this is generally a warning. Amy will also get a warning for a failure to maintain game state because she did not notice and call attention to this mistake in a reasonable amount of time. Now on to the fix. Ordinarily, in a game rule violation, there's two possibilities. You could either leave the game state as it is, or you could have a backup to the point immediately before the error. However, in this case, there's actually a third option. Because this situation has a card that was put into the wrong zone during a zone change, that means that we have a partial fix available. Basically, what this means, if you don't speak rules speak, is that the IPG, Magic's policy documents, give us a specific fix for situations that exactly fit into this type of a category. What the fix is would be to just take the card that's in the wrong zone and put it into the correct zone. That ends up being a lot easier than trying to back up through all the stuff that would have happened in the game since then, and it ends up being a lot closer to what the correct game state is most of the time, including here. And now for the next question that's sure to be on Nick's mind. What will happen to this card? Will I get to play it? And for the answer to that, we'll refer back to the CR definition on Rebound. It says the next upkeep, you're able to cast it. So, if Nick has not had any upkeeps during the time between when this situation was caught and when he cast the Rebound spell, well, he's in luck. There's nothing that would interfere with his ability to normally cast that spell here, and so when his upkeep does come around, Nick will have the opportunity to do so. However, if there has been an upkeep for Nick during the time between when this error was caught and when he committed it, then he's out of luck. This triggered ability only triggers during your next upkeep, and it won't trigger during any subsequent ones. Also, not casting the spell here is definitely within Nick's rights to do, so he hasn't broken any rules. That's because it does use the word may. And what that means is that there's no problem at all with Nick just not casting it. So, in that case, the Rebound spell will just stay exiled indefinitely. Now, before I sign off, I did want to talk a little bit about Amy's role in all of this. I said before that Amy would be getting a warning for failure to maintain game state. However, if you're in Amy's situation here, there's something kind of important for you to know. If you see Nick not exiling the card with Rebound, then that means you have to call attention to that. You're obligated to do so because of the same reason why you would be obligated to call attention to it if, say, a player put a creature that you used Path to Exile on into their graveyard rather than exiling it. Anytime you see a player put a card into a wrong zone and break a game rule in the process, then that means you're obligated to call for a judge. That means that if Amy saw this happening and didn't call attention to the mistake, well, she did something against the game rules, and she probably did it in order to gain an advantage. That's starting to sound an awful lot like cheating. However, there's one more important thing for you to consider. In order for a behavior to be considered cheating, the player has to be aware of the fact that they're breaking a rule and doing it for their advantage. That means that Amy might not necessarily be cheating in this sort of situation. It's entirely plausible that a player might think it's within their rights to not tell their opponent about that Rebound spell. After all, they're also within their rights to not tell their opponent about triggered abilities, and most players in a game of Magic probably don't have the rules knowledge necessary to distinguish why one of these cases would be allowed and the other one wouldn't. Be sure to carefully investigate what the player's intention and awareness of the mistake was, and proceed accordingly. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, and until then, I hope you have a great day. One other special announcement, I recently hit 2,000 subscribers. I never thought that this many people would be interested in seeing me talk about the rules every day, but I'm certainly pleasantly surprised about it. In celebration, I have a community post up where I've announced that I'm going to be doing an Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions, magic or otherwise, that you'd like to ask, be sure to find that post on my community tab and ask away. See you next time. Bye.